Hello, I'm Daniel, and today I'm going to give a teaching from the Way of the Bodhisattva, Entering the Way of the Bodhisattva. And this is chapter 4. It's called Teachings on Carefulness. Teachings on Carefulness. And I like that word, carefulness. It means we are, caring. We're being careful. We're trying to do a good job. We're trying to honor our commitments. We're trying to really practice this path instead of just carelessly doing it, not really trying that hard, okay? So in this sense, we're undertaking the spiritual journey, but it's not a hobby. We're trying to really change our lives, and carefulness can be fundamental to that. We want to be careful to make sure we're making the right choices. This chapter is really about how to keep our commitments and stay on track on the Bodhisattva path, the path of helping ourselves and others, the path of mindfulness and compassion and wisdom, okay? And I'll just touch on briefly, the 6 perfections are the things we're trying to cultivate on the Bodhisattva path, and I'm going to just say what those are. This carefulness is like the foundation from which we're trying to cultivate those 6 perfections, and that's why it's here in the text. The next few chapters are about the 6 perfections, and I say perfection is the way that word gets translated. Paramita is the word, and it's just the qualities that bring us to the Bodhisattva life. The qualities that we want to think about these qualities, and we want to try to nurture them in our lives. Okay, nurture them. And they are, and I'm just going to say what they are. I'm not going to go to incredible detail right now because, again, there will be time for that later. But just to introduce them, they are generosity, virtue, patience, diligence, concentration, and wisdom. We want to learn how to be more generous, how to be more virtuous, how to be more patient, how to be diligent, how to concentrate, and how to cultivate wisdom. So, the basis, the ground in which we're trying to water these seeds is carefulness. Carefulness. It's really just reflecting on how can I make the best choices to help others. So this chapter 4 of Way of the Bodhisattva, is about the importance of being careful, including potential consequences. And I'll say at the outset, this is going to talk about rebirth. It's going to talk about being born in lower realms and hell realms, and also being fortunate enough to be born in a human body. And I want to address that at the outset and say that in my mind, we can view these literally, as in when you die, the positive and negative actions you've taken in life will result in the conditions of your future life. That would be the literal interpretation. And then the metaphorical interpretation is just the things we do have an impact on us. If we're making the world a better place, it makes our world a better place. And so that's what I have to say about that. If rebirth is a really difficult concept to wrap your mind around for you, that's okay. It doesn't need to be taken literally, and I need you to keep that in mind, okay? It doesn't need to be taken literally. So, I'm going to read from the text, and I'm going to comment throughout on this chapter called Teachings on Carefulness. When I think of this, I think of the lesson that my mother always told me, which was make good choices. She said, make good choices. She didn't say, try to succeed or anything else. She said, make good choices. And that's what I think of carefulness. What we're talking about is being careful to know what the right decisions are and to make those. Okay? Okay. The victor's offspring who have thus grasped bodhicitta steadfastly must strive without any lassitude to never violate the precepts. Now, the victor's offspring are bodhisattvas. It's you and me, okay? If we're walking this path, we are the victor's offspring. So, to address that real quick. And bodhicitta is the mind of awakening. It's what nurtures, motivates, and inspires us to help ourselves and others. But strive without violating the precepts. That is just strive to do good works and avoid bad works, or refrain from evil and do good. Or, I like to say, don't be a jerk. Do nice things and don't be a jerk, okay? That's what we're talking about here. I could go into what Buddhist precepts are, but I think we may not need to for this. But that being said, I guess I will go through them. So Bodhisattva precepts are something that Shantideva recommends in this text. And it's a set of vows you can take. It's a long set of vows that you can take to try to live a life of virtue and wisdom. I've taken these vows, and they really, I feel they supercharged my practice. But that being said, of course nobody has to. And then there are other forms of precepts as well. But Bodhisattva precepts are what's really relevant to this text, and to probably any text with the word bodhisattva in it. Bodhisattva vows, sometimes they're called bodhisattva precepts, and at a later time, I may go into detail about those. But in this, he's saying, and we could apply this to our regular life too, honor your commitments. If you commit to doing something, do it. If you commit to doing something, do it. That's pretty easy to understand, I think. When something has been started rashly, or is not properly thought out, even if promised, it is best to examine whether to act or not. But why should I put off that which the Buddha and their offspring have investigated with great prajna, and I myself have also examined? Prajna is wisdom, okay? The eye of wisdom, sometimes people say. So he's comparing commitments we make that maybe aren't important to this commitment to make the world a better place for ourselves and others, okay? So I may commit to watching 10 episodes of a show in a row on Netflix. That's a silly commitment. That's not beneficial to myself or anyone else, really. But no, we're not talking about that kind of commitment. We're talking about committing to making the world a better place for ourselves and others, and striving to achieve great enlightenment, okay? The spiritual journey is something that should be celebrated and should be taken seriously. And there are all sorts of things that maybe don't need to be taken seriously in life. But this is not one of those. If now that I have made a promise, I don't fulfill it with my actions, I will have hoodwinked all those beings, and what will be my destiny? A person who thinks in their mind to give some trifling little thing but does not give it will become a hungry ghost, it has been said. Having invited them from my heart as guests to sublime happiness, if I deceive all wanderers, will I go to the higher realms? People who give up bodhicitta still being liberated is an inconceivable way of karma that only the omniscient know. So what's going on here? He's reflecting on these vows he's taken, these bodhisattva vows, and he's saying, I have declared I'm going to have an open heart and I'm going to help people whenever I can. So it's really bad if I don't do that. It's really bad if I don't do that. Breaking vows hinders our ability to help others. Breaking vows hinders our ability to help others. And this is true of bodhisattva vows, but it's true of most commitments too. If you break your marriage vows, it hinders your ability to help others. Lots of things can go wrong, right? What are some other... We don't, in our culture, have a lot of examples of vows we take outside of marriage vows and religious vows, but I think, like, we have a commitment when we have a child and we sign their birth certificate. In a way, we are agreeing to take care of that child. And it's definitely true that breaking that vow hinders our ability to help others. It hinders all sorts of things in our lives, and it's not a nice thing to do, right? Okay. So now we're going to talk a little bit about how breaking the vow hinders our ability to help others. This downfall for a bodhisattva is the most serious of all. If it occurs, their benefit to all sentient beings is diminished. Anyone else who thwarts their merit even a moment will be born endlessly in the lower realms, since they've decreased all beings' welfare. If one who spoils the happiness of even a single being is ruined, why mention ruining the well-being of infinite beings throughout space? So we're committed to the well-being of all the people around us, and if we break that commitment, that's really bad. This is serious, okay? And it should be taken seriously. This is, again, this spiritual path is not a hobby. This is a lifelong, powerful commitment. Okay? Okay. If swinging back and forth between strong downfalls and strong bodhicitta, you mix them in samsaric cycles, it will take long to reach the levels. Therefore, I will, with dedication, accomplish what I promised to do. If from now on I make no effort, I'll go from lower to lower realm. So he's affirming his commitment. He's affirming his commitment, saying, I will accomplish what I've promised to do. I will follow my vows. I will make the world a better place, or at least I will try really, really hard. Okay? Okay. Though countless Buddhas have appeared and benefited all sentient beings, due to my wrongs I have not been a beneficiary of their succor. If I still act in such a way over and over again, I will experience in the lower realms being sick, bound, hacked, and stabbed, and such. So there are consequences. If I don't create harmony in this world, there are consequences. He's describing them as very heavy consequences, but the point is, if we just mess around and we don't take this really seriously, it's not going to have the results we want. It's rare a Tathagata appears, rare to gain faith, a human body, and the ability to cultivate virtue. When will I ever have these again? Tathagata is another word for the Buddha, essentially, at least in this context. So he's saying, I'm lucky to have access to Buddhist teachings. I'm lucky to have a human body that's relatively healthy. I am lucky that I have the ability to cultivate virtue. When will I have these again? Because I'm in this position where I'm lucky to have this opportunity, I need to seize that. I need to seize that because it's important, and I am lucky. And sometimes in life we don't think of ourselves as lucky, but in many ways we are. We have access to lots of things that people from the long arc of human history did not have access to. And not only that, but also people in many parts of the world still don't have access to today, right? A whole lot of people in the world don't know when they're going to get clean drinking water. And we have the good fortune to be in a situation, I assume everyone watching this is in a situation where they do know when they're going to have access to clean drinking water. And we don't think that's a big deal, but not everybody has that, so it is a big deal. And not only that, but historically, teachings like these were not available everywhere. We're lucky to live in a time and place where all the teachings are available and they're at our fingertips. They're very easy to access, even if they're hard to understand. They're very easy to access. And that's important. That shouldn't be diminished. That's important. And not only that, but modern medicine and things like soap, these things do a lot for us as well that historically wasn't always available. Just to talk about myself for a minute, I guess, I have epilepsy. Sometimes I say I had childhood epilepsy, and sometimes I say I have epilepsy because I haven't had a seizure in 20 years, but it could come back at any time, really. So say I have epilepsy, even though it's not a part of my life now. But as a child, it was a part of my life. And my parents had access to medicine I could take that would manage it. And again, I don't take anything for it now, but there was a time when I needed to take medicine to manage it. And I was lucky that I was born in a time when that was available. I was lucky. My parents were lucky that we were around in a time when that medicine that could help me was available. Because 100 years ago, if I had been born, that wouldn't have been an option for me, right? And in the same way, if you've ever had to have surgery of any kind, like, okay, surgery's been around a long time, but 150 years ago, they didn't really know about germs, and doctors didn't wash their hands before they performed surgery all the time. So, again, if you've ever had surgery, well, it's pretty lucky you were born in this time and place, right? Because a lot of people died after surgery because they didn't know about germs. It's crazy to think about. There was a time when people didn't know about germs, but there was. So, in that sense, we're lucky. Although on days such as today, I may be healthy, fed, and safe, life will deceive me in an instant. This body's a momentary loan. Life is fleeting and we can die anytime. It just is. That's a fact. Anytime you can be in a car accident. Anytime you can discover you have a rare disease that's going to kill you. It happens to people all the time. And we want to have that somewhere in our minds, not just because we want to be sad or we want to freak ourselves out, but because if we know we're all going to die, can that inspire us to be kinder? It inspires me. And not only that, but once we agree that these teachings and this path is important, then knowing we're going to die puts some urgency on it. Oh, I need to take this very seriously. Life is fleeting. It could be gone any time, right? So, in that sense, just being aware that we're going to die can maybe help us focus on the things we think are important. Because life is fleeting and we only have so much time. It's a momentary loan. That's what Shantideva says. So it's important to put your energy in the right directions. So, behaving like this, I will not get a human body ever again. If I don't gain a human body, there's only wrong and never good. If I do not act virtuously, despite my fortune to do good, what will I do when stupefied by suffering of the lower realms? If I do not perform any virtues and accumulate misdeeds, I'll never for billions of eons hear the words, the higher realms. So I told you about rebirth and at the beginning, and I'll just address that again, and that's just, he's saying, you know, if I'm lucky to be in this position, and I don't, try now to live a good life, then I'm maybe not going to be born in this position again. It could be a really long time, right? That's what he's talking about here. Don't get caught up in that imagery and that billions of eons, that kind of wording. He's just saying, like, I'm lucky now, and when will I have this opportunity again? And maybe in life sometimes we think that about other opportunities. Therefore, the Bhagavan, it's another name for the Buddha, the Bhagavan, taught gaining a human body is as hard as for a turtle to stick its neck through a yoke tossed on the vast seas. So, again, we're really lucky. This rebirth thing that we're talking about, the story is not only can you be reborn as a human being in different places, but you can be reborn in other worlds, and you can be reborn as an animal too. So there's all sorts of situations you could be born into where you don't have this opportunity. Okay? And I think we can just think, I'm lucky to have this opportunity and I should appreciate it. We don't have to think of all this rebirth and such if we don't want to. Being reborn as a bug does sound very unpleasant, but we don't have to believe that could happen to us. Rather, we can just appreciate this opportunity we have and try to take advantage of it. And the next section, he's going to ponder misdeeds he's done, okay? If due to a wrong done in an instant, one will stay eons in the incessant, what need to say that due to misdeeds I've done in beginningless samsara, I will not go to the higher realms? After I have experienced that much, I won't be freed from there, for while I am experiencing it, I will still produce more misdeeds. Now that I've gained such leisure as this life, if I don't cultivate the virtues, there's no deception other than this, nor any greater idiocy. And if once I have realized this, I am deluded, still despondent, when the time comes for me to die, I'll feel tremendous grief well up. I don't know if you've been with someone who's dying, but some people, when they have the chance to reflect on how they're about to die, some people are just freaked out and scared, and other people just calmly go into the experience. And I want to calmly die. I don't know about you, but I don't want to be on my deathbed and think, oh, I could have lived a better life. I want to live a better life now, right? If you knew you were going to die, would you be nicer to people? I would. That's what we're talking about. You are going to die. And next, we're going to talk about hell realms. It's something that's talked about in Buddhism sometimes, hell realms. And again, I don't take this literally necessarily, but it's if you live an incredibly bad life, you can be born in a place that is a realm that's really unpleasant, but unlike other visions of evil places like this, it ends. So you're there for a while, and then you die again, and you're reborn somewhere else. Okay? So, when the intolerable flames of hell have burned my body long, there is no doubt that blazing fires of dreadful rue will rack my mind. Somehow, by luck, I've gained a place of benefit so hard to get. Again, that's this life. If I, while I am cognizant, am led back to those hells again, it's as if I've been bewitched by spells and have no will in this. I don't know what's deluded me. What do I have inside of me? So he's expressing that the problems come from within him. From within him. He is, in a sense, his own worst enemy. Okay? And in a sense, we are our own worst enemies. Okay? So, aversion, craving, and so forth. My enemies have no limbs as such. They are not brave or wise, and yet they've somehow made me a slave. So, he's saying that his passions, his weaknesses, his fears, his emotional baggage, he's a slave to them. They control him. He's not making his own choices. Rather, he's dragged around by these things, okay? And he's not just saying that to tell us about him, but rather because we are this way too. We are this way too, okay? So, that is what we're talking about here. As long as they dwell in my mind, they'll cause me harm at their own pleasure. It's wrong to bear that without anger. Being patient would be blameworthy. If all the gods and demigods arose against me as my foes, they could not take or force me to the fires of his incessant hell. So he's sort of personifying these afflictions, these things that are getting in his way. And that's not literal. They're not literal enemies, but they're the things that are getting in his way. He's saying, I'm my own worst enemy. So that is what we're talking about here. This powerful enemy, afflictions, will cast me in an instant there, where even Mount Meru would be turned to ash on contact, nothing left. The adversaries, my afflictions, last long without beginning or end. No other enemy is able to endure so long a time as them. Everyone, when attended kindly, is helpful and will try to please, but when afflictions are appeased, they inflict more suffering in return. So what are we talking about? We're talking about cravings, when I'm obsessed with the things I want, and aversion when I'm obsessed with the things I don't want, and then just my emotional baggage, the way I can be obsessed with the past at times, and my ignorance, the way I don't know what's what in the world. These are the afflictions that we're talking about. Sometimes attachment, aversion, and ignorance are sometimes called the three poisons. They're just things that really get in our way sometimes, okay? And so he's saying that my greatest enemy is my own struggles, not anybody else. If thus my long and constant enemies, the only cause of the proliferation of manifold harms, remain within my heart, can I be safe and happy in samsara? If the keepers of the prison of samsara, such as the murderous butchers in the hells, live in the webs of greed within my mind, how can there be any happiness for me? Therefore, until I see that I have truly slain this enemy, I will not slacken in my efforts. Those who are filled with pride, once angered, cannot sleep until those who have caused a slight offense are killed. I think if you've ever overreacted to anything, and I think we all overreact to things, I think if you've ever overreacted to anything, that can make sense. He's sort of, in this section, describing the struggle with his own baggage and neuroses as like a battle that he's fighting. Once the afflicted who suffer from a mortal nature enter the fray of battle with a strong wish to triumph, they scorn the pain of being struck by spears and arrows, and won't retreat until they have attained their goal. For me, who strives to vanquish my true natural foes, they always are the cause of every suffering. What need is there to say? I won't now be dismayed or daunted by the 100 causes of misery. If someone wounded pointlessly by enemies will flaunt their scars as decorations on their body, how then is suffering a cause of injury for me who truly strives to accomplish a great purpose? If fishermen, outcast farmers, and so forth, with only thought of their own livelihood, forbear the harms of heat and cold and such, why don't I bear those for being's weal? Weal, W-E-A-L, it means well-being. So I don't know why the translator didn't just say well-being. But anyway, when I swore I would free all beings to the ends of space in all directions, that's the Bodhisattva vow, from the afflictions, I myself was not yet free of afflictions. How is it speaking without knowing my limitations was not insane? Therefore, I'll never be turned back in subjugating the afflictions. So we're trying to help others deal with their afflictions, but we're simultaneously dealing with our own as well. I'll cling to this tenaciously and enter battle bearing a grudge against afflictions other than the type that conquer the afflictions. It would be better to be slain by being burnt or decapitated. In no way shall I ever bow before my enemy, the afflictions. Though ordinary enemies, when banished, will stay in other lands, which they adopt to build their power until their return, the enemy affliction is not so. Wretched afflictions cast out by the eye of Prajna, Prajna means wisdom, cast out by the eye of Prajna, when they are driven from my mind, where can they go? Where can they stay so that they can return to harm me? It's just that I, weak-minded, have not persevered. So that reflects a lack of effort. Lack of effort means lack of results, okay? Okay. Afflictions do not dwell in objects in the senses or between, nor are they somewhere else. Where do they dwell that they harm beings? They're like illusions. Rid your heart of fear and apply diligence. For the sake of Prajna, why let them torment you pointlessly in hell? So, this is a tough thing for us to think about at times, I think. If you see a really attractive person, it's not the nature of them to be attractive. That's coming from you. Okay? That's coming from you. Another way to think about this is food, I think. If food really, certain food is really gross to you, that's coming from you. And it's probably not gross to someone else, right? There's all kinds of people with all kinds of desires. But we tend to think, we put labels on things and say, this is good, this is bad, this is delightful, this is horrifying. And then we think those things are universal and real, but they're not. Everything is a label we're putting on it. They don't really have these qualities. And that can help us sort of disentangle from it a little bit. We may think that ice cream is the best thing ever, but at the same time, if we remind ourselves, oh, well, this is not that important. Maybe I shouldn't have more ice cream. I've had enough. My stomach's going to hurt later, right? That sort of thing. If we can have that sort of perception, then maybe we're not so carried away by our desires and our aversions. Okay? Okay. I've contemplated thus and now will strive to undertake the precepts as described. How can a patient who needs medicine be cured if they ignore the doctor's advice? So we know what good choices are, and in a sense, that's what we're talking about. How can I know what the best choice is and not make that choice? I know meditation's good for me. Why am I not meditating? I compare it to flossing, because flossing is a thing that I know I should do every day, and I don't like to do it. And I think a lot of us are that way. It's the same way. I know I need to eat more vegetables, and I'm not doing it. Well, why not? Well, I should. Eat more vegetables, okay? Spread kindness, because you know it's good for you, and it's good for the world around you. It increases harmony. It makes the world a better place. And it's good for your well-being. And it's the same. Practice meditation, because it's good for your well-being, and it improves your relationships with others, and it improves your concentration and helps you see things clearly, okay? So that is what, and I really love that last line, because he's saying, well, I know what to do, so I should do it, right? I know that following these vows I made is a good idea, so I should do it, and I shouldn't make excuses for not doing it. So that's it for today. Thank you for taking the time to listen to me. This has been the chapter on carefulness, and have a good day.